Hey, beautiful people. How you doing? Got to give my baby girl some camera time. Anyway, so she's in the shot until she decides to move. Anyway, welcome to Saturday live stream. I'm Lisa for Truth, your host. And today we make fun of the Bible. Yay! One of my favorite things to do. I cannot believe I used to believe this. I mean, I was a biblical literalist. Yeah, and I can't believe that I used to believe this stuff. In fact, I have a live stream where I tell on myself about the crazy things that I used to believe. So go check that live stream out. Alrighty. Um, so, um, before I go on, if you want to become a member of this channel, you can. You can join for as little as 99 cents a month. There are different levels with different um, perks for each level. Hi, Lisa. If you want to go ahead and join, you can do that. Help me out a little bit. Help me improve this channel. Um, I don't know when I'm going to be physical therapy. They have not contacted me. They are pretty busy over there. Don't know when. But I will be doing my edited videos as soon as I can write with my right hand. Um, I am working on an edited video right now. Um, it's a bit different than the edited videos you're used to with me. And so I really hope you enjoy that. It's taking me a long time to finish. So I'm not sure when I'll be finished with that. Um, anyway, all right. So let's get on with the program. And today we're talking about 1 Samuel 28 through 31. In those days, the Philistines gathered their forces to fight against Israel. Achish said to David, "You must understand that you and your men will accompany me in the army." David said, "Then you will see for yourself what your servant can do." Achish replied, "Very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life." Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had mourned for him, and buried him in his own town of Ramah. Saul had expelled the mediums and spiritists from the land. The Philistines assembled and came and set up camp at Shunem, while Saul gathered all Israel and set up camp at Gilboa. When Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid, terror filled his heart. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him by dreams or Urim or the prophets. Okay, so hang on, let me get past verse 7 and then we'll talk about it. Saul said to his attendants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so I may go and inquire of her." There's what he said. All right. That's funny, Big Zebra. So anyway, all right. So Samuel died. We covered that last not last week. I was sick last week, but the week before that. We covered it the week before that. So Samuel died, and Saul's going against the Philistines. Of course, this is all made up. But anyway, um, I have to keep reminding people of that, um, just in case I get some Christians in here. Um, and so Saul's going to go up against the Philistines, right? And Saul is inquiring of God, and God's not answering him. You know, God's a really, really shit asshole of a God. All right. So he won't answer him by the prophets. So obviously there were more prophets than just Samuel. I guess Samuel is just like the chief prophet. I don't know. They don't say that, but that's what I'm assuming. Or the Urim. Now the Urim was a like a it was a divining device that had God's approval, which is kind of strange because God doesn't like divining, at least according to the law of Moses. God doesn't like divining. So why would the Israelites have a specific divining device specifically approved by God? That make any sense, right? But this is the Bible. When does anything make sense? So, you know, um, so when Saul becomes king, he kicked out all the mediums and spiritists, right? Because God said, you got to do this. God's a micromanager. So anyway, so Saul does that. And then he says, you know what? I really need a medium. Yeah, tell me about it, Lisa. So Saul says, I really need a medium. Go find me a medium. And so his men say, well, there's one over at Endor. I don't know where Endor is. No clue. All right, so that's where we are. Verse 8. So Saul disguised himself, putting on other clothes, and at night he and 2 men went to the woman. Consult a spirit for me, he said, and bring up for me the one I name. But the woman said to him, surely you know what Saul has done. He has cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why have you set a trap for my life to bring about my death? So why is she still in the land if Saul had everyone kicked out of the land? It doesn't make any sense. But then, of course, we're dealing with the Bible. Verse 10. Saul swore to her by the Lord, as surely as the Lord lives, you will not be punished for this. Then the woman asked, whom shall I bring up for you? Bring up Samuel, he said. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out at the top of her voice and said to Saul, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. The king said to her, don't be afraid. What do you see? The woman said, I see a ghostly figure coming up out of the earth. What does he look like? He asked. An old man wearing a robe is coming up, she said. Then Saul knew it was Samuel, and he bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. Samuel said to Saul, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? In other words, Saul, I was having a great old time with Elle in heaven. Why the fuck are you disturbing me? Okay, moving on. I am in great distress, Saul said. The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has departed from me. He no longer answers me, either by prophets or by dreams. I have called on you to tell me what to do. Um, Saul, if you're getting the silent treatment, maybe just let it go. You sound like a stalker, honestly. Okay, verse 16. Samuel said, "Why do you consult me, now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to one of your neighbors, to David. Because you did not obey the Lord or carry out his fierce wrath against the Amalekites, the Lord has done this to you today. The Lord will deliver both Israel and you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will also give the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Okay, so let's talk about that. Hi, Godless Sewing. So let's talk about that. Samuel's like, "Why the fuck are you bothering me? I'm chilling out with Elle, you know?" Um, and Saul says, "Look, Samuel, chill out. I just need some answers, and God's not answering me. So what else am I supposed to do? You know?" And Samuel says, "Get the fuck out of here. God's, you know, God's gonna turn you over to the Philistines and Israel too. So don't bother me. Let me go back, chill out with Elle, and leave me the fuck alone." Okay, so basically that's what he's saying. Um, all right, verse 20. Immediately Saul fell full length on the ground, filled with fear because of Samuel's words. His strength was gone, for he had eaten nothing all that day and all that night. When the woman came to Saul and saw that he was greatly shaken, she said, "Look, your servant has obeyed you. I took my life in my hands and did what you told me to do. Now please listen to your servant and let me give you some food so you may eat and have the strength to go on your way." He refused and said, "I will not eat." But his men joined the woman in urging him, and he listened to them. He got up from the ground and sat on the couch. The woman had a fattened calf at the house, which she butchered at once. She took some flour, kneaded it, and baked bread without yeast. Then she set it before Saul and his men, and they ate. That same night they got up and left. Okay, so interesting. Hey, Robert. Hey, Scapegoat. Hey, Pixie. Okay, so that's interesting. Um, why? Um, Lisa, nothing's wrong with yeast. It's just she had to bake it quickly because apparently she didn't have any bread in the house. So she had to bake it quickly, and that's the only way you can bake bread quickly, at least back in that time. Now we have bread machines, but still bread machines take about 3 hours. All right, chapter 29. The Philistines gathered all their forces at Aphek, and Israel camped by the spring in Jezreel. As the Philistine rulers marched with their units of hundreds and thousands, David and his men were marching at the rear with Achish. The commanders of the Philistines asked, "What about these Hebrews?" Achish replied, "Is this not David, who was an officer of Saul, king of Israel? He has already been with me for over a year, and from the day he left Saul until now, I have found no fault in him." But the Philistine commanders were angry with Achish and said, "Send the men back, that he may return to the place you assigned him. He must not go into battle, or he will turn against us during the fighting." Thank you. Somebody finally has some sense. Of course, this is all made up, but David's loyalties lie with Israel. How better could he regain his master's favor than by taking the heads of our own men? Isn't this the David they sing about in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. So Achish called David and said to him, "As surely as the Lord lives, you have been reliable, and I would be pleased to have you serve me in the army. From the day you came to me until today, I have found no fault in you, but the rulers don't approve of you. Now turn back and go in peace. Do nothing to displease the Philistine rulers." "But what have I done?" asked David. "What have you found against your servant from the day I came unto you until now? Why can't I go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" Achish answered, "I know that you have been as pleasing in my eyes as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the Philistine commanders have said he must not go up with us into battle. Now get up early along with your master's servants who have come with you, and leave in the morning as soon as it is light." So David and his men got up early in the morning to go back to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. Well, that was kind of a pointless chapter. But yeah, basically, the Philistines don't want David fighting with them because, after all, David is an Israelite. Of course, we're pretending this is all true, which it's not. All right, moving on. This is kind of boring today, huh? I just read a whole chapter, and I don't have much to say about the chapter. It's just basically, "Oh, yeah, they went up to battle." You could have said that in one sentence. Okay, chapter 30. David and his men reached Ziklag on the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They had attacked Ziklag and burned it, and had taken captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. Well, at least the Amalekites are more merciful than the Israelites, if you want to believe this book, but I don't. So let's go on. Verse 3. When David and his men reached Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. How did they know they were taken captive? I mean, sure, they didn't find any bodies um, in the burned out rubbish, but that doesn't mean that, they took them alive. But anyway, getting back to the story, verse 4. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. David's two wives had been captured, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Um, David, You were raiding the Amalekites. What did you expect them to do? Seriously. You seriously expect them to know that you raided them and do absolutely nothing about it? What kind of stupidity are we dealing with here? Verse 7. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod. Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them, he answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. David and the 600 men with him came to the Bezor valley, where some stayed behind. 200 of them were too exhausted to cross the valley, but David and the other 400 continued the pursuit. They found an Egyptian in a field and brought him to David. They gave him water to drink and food to eat, part of a cake of pressed figs and 2 cakes of raisins. He ate and was revived, for he had not eaten any food or drunk any water for 3 days and 3 nights. Um, yeah, you can survive without water for 3 days, but highly doubtful. Anyway, verse 13. David asked him, who do you belong to? Where do you? He said, I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite. My master abandoned me when I became ill 3 days ago. We raided the Negev of the Kerethites, some territory belonging to Judah, and the Negev of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag. David asked him, can you lead me down to this raiding party? He answered, swear to me before God that you will not kill me or hand me over to my master, and I will take you down to them. So David must have complied. He led David down, and there they were, scattered over the countryside, eating, drinking, and reveling because of the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until the evening of the next day, and none of them got away except 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, young or old, boy or girl, plunder, or anything else they had taken. Right. Yeah. And I'm the Queen of England. David brought everything back. He took all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock, saying, this is David's plunder. Why? Why? David's the stupid asshole that left them unprotected to begin with. All right, verse 21. Before I get there, does this make any sense to anybody else? Yeah, tell me about it, Lisa. Laughing out loud, Big Zebra. Laughing out loud. Alrighty. Um, going back. Verse 21. Then David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him and who were left behind at the Bezor valley. They came out to meet David and the men with him. As David and his men approached, he asked them how they were. But all the evil men and troublemakers among David's followers said, because they did not go out with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered. However, each man may take his wife and children and go. And how is that not fair? Seriously, how is that not fair? Verse 23, David replied, "No, my brothers, you must not do that with what the Lord has given us. Um, the Lord didn't give it to you, asshole. Uh, it was yours before." Anyway, makes no sense. I mean, I do agree that the men who were left behind should get their own property back. Okay. He has protected us and delivered into our hands the raiding party that came against us. Who will listen to what you say? The share of the man who stayed with the supplies is to be the same as that of him who went down to the battle. All will share alike. David made this statute and ordinance for Israel from that day to this. Okay, well, I mean, that makes sense because somebody has to stay behind and guard the camp, right? Like, they wouldn't have even have had this problem had David, the stupid asshole, not done that to begin with. If David, the stupid asshole, had left some men behind to guard the women and children, um, this wouldn't have happened. Anyway, verse 26, when David reached Ziklag, he sent some of the plunder to the elders of Judah, who were his friends, saying, "Here is a gift for you from the plunder of the Lord's enemies." David, it sounds like you're trying to buy friends. Just saying. Verse 27, David sent it to those who were at Bethel, Ramoth Negev, and Jachir, to those in Auror, Sifmoth, Eshtemoa, and Racal, and those in the towns of the Jerahmeelites and the Kenites, to those in Hormah, Bor, Ashan, Athik, and Hebron, and to those in all the other places where he and his men had roamed. We get it already. You gave gifts to bribe them. Okay, chapter 31. Last one. Why? I gotta ask this, and maybe somebody knows. Why are these idiots talking about places that we don't have anymore? All right, moving on. Chapter 31. And this is the last uh, chapter we're going to read today, mainly because this is the end of First Samuel. Okay, chapter 31. Now the Philistines fought against Israel. The Israelites fled before them, and many fell dead at Mount Gilboa. The Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his sons Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and when the archers overtook him, they wounded him critically. Okay, so why did God not protect Jonathan? I mean, it seems to me Jonathan's the only decent person in this whole mess of a story. You know, And it just doesn't make any sense. Of course, uh, good people meet their demise prematurely all the time, but we're talking about God here. He should have the power to step in and say, "No, no, 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 no. You're not doing that to this poor guy." Yeah, that's true, Pixie. All right, moving on. Verse 4, Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and run me through and abuse me." That's your beef with the Philistines, is that they're okay. So your beef with the Philistines is not that they're going to capture you. Not really. Your beef with the Philistines is they don't have part of their dick cut off. That's your major beef with the Philistines. So did I, scapegoat. So did I. Okay. But his armor bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died with him. So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor bearer and all his men died together the same day. God does love his blood, doesn't he? Doesn't have to be animal blood. Can be human blood too. He just loves blood. Blood for the blood god. I mean, sure. At this point in history, people are fighting everybody all the time. It happens, you know, it just does. But for God's chosen people to be slaughtered like that, I'm glad I'm not chosen by God. That's all I gotta say. If that's how he treats his chosen people, forget it, God. Verse 7. When the Israelites along the valley and those across the Jordan saw that the Israelite army had fled, and that Saul and his sons had died, they abandoned their towns and fled, and the Philistines came and occupied them. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They cut off his head and stripped off his armor, and they sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news in the temple of their idols and among their people. They put his armor in the temple of the Ashtoreths and fastened his body to the wall of Beth Shan. When the people of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their valiant men marched through the night to Bethshan. They took down the bodies of Saul and his sons from the wall of Bethshan and went to Jabesh, where they burned them. Then they took their bones and buried them under a tamarisk tree at Jabesh, and they fasted 7 days. I didn't think Jews were allowed to burn their dead. Right, Lisa? You might as well scapegoat because that's exactly what it is. Or, you can call it holy and insert an E between the L and the Y. That'd work just fine too. Yeah, Pixie. He comes out until, he pisses God off. But, that's for another day and time. Hey, brain bug. I often wonder, and we're through for today, but I often wonder, this is supposed to be one of Israel's heroes. This is supposed to be one of Israel's heroes. Why are they portraying their heroes this way? And of course, the Christians are going to say, well, because the Bible, is the inspired word of God, which is nonsense. But they're going to say it's the inspired word of God, and God inspired them to write down the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, you know what? I agree, brain bug. Well, you know what? This God doesn't exist. This God does not exist. Okay. But even if this God did exist, he did not inspire the Bible. Okay? Let me tell you something about the Bible that you might not know. Now, my viewers right now know this. The Bible has been edited many times over. Many, many, many times over. Yeah, tell me about it, brain bug. We're going to get to that one. I don't know. I I I don't know what the Bible's trying to get at. I mean, I really, really don't. These are horrible, horrible stories. And parents are supposed to tell these stories as bedtime stories to their children. Um, no, thank you. I'd rather not have nightmares. Yeah, scapegoat, I know. So, what is it with this book? It's so bloody. I mean, you asked me about the Bible. That's the first thing that comes to mind. It's bloody. It's immoral, even though if you ask the Christians, it's called the good book. you're going to have to support that. Hey, comrade, you're going to have to support the assertion that the Bible is the good book because it's not. And I've heard Christians say that that some of them have read the Book of Mormon and that it is a bloody book. Yeah. What about your book? What about the Bible? The Bible's just as bloody, if not even bloodier, you know? I don't know why anybody would follow this train wreck of a religion. And we're only in the Old Testament. We are only in the Old Testament, or the Tanakh, as the Jews call it. My bad. The Tanakh. We're only in the Tanakh. You think the New Testament is all sunshine and roses? No, it's not. It is not all sunshine and roses. And when we get there, you're going to see it's not all sunshine and roses. And the advice that Jesus gives is supposed to be good advice. He's supposed to be the Son of God, right? And he's supposed to be given the best advice ever. The advice that Jesus gives falls flat on its face. I don't understand how I followed this religion for so long. I don't understand how it took so long for me to wake up to the reality that this is a horrible, horrible, horrible religion. Well, that's true, scapegoat. I mean, seriously, what is good about this book? Sure, there is peppered here and there, some good advice. Peppered, okay? But it's not any better than the advice you can get in secular sources. So, why do we need the Bible again? So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to thumb up the video, leave a comment for the algorithm, and if you've got a little extra change to throw my way, I would greatly appreciate it if you would hit that join button at the bottom of the screen. You can join for as little as 99 cents a month. And, um, I will have an edited video coming out, but I'm not sure when. Like I said, I'm trying something new with my edited videos, and it takes a lot of time. So I'm not sure when that's going to be up. I'm going to try to make it sometime this week, but I'm not sure. So anyway, uh, thank you for sticking with me for this horrible, horrible, horrible book. Hey, Jeannie. And I will see you tomorrow for Atheist Church. Same bat time, same bat channel. Okay. See you guys later. Bye.